David Cameron must accept the failure of the government's manifesto pledge to reduce migration into the UK, two leading Vote Leave MPs have said. Michael Gove and Boris Johnson said the pledge was corrosive of public trust while Britain remained in the EU. But Number 10 said their claim was an attempt to distract from the fact that a Brexit would be disastrous. It comes as a survey suggests that 9 in 10 of the UK's top economists say leaving the EU would be damaging. Net migration, the difference between the number of people coming to the UK for at least a year and those leaving, rose to 333,000 in 2015, according to Office for National Statistics estimates. The government is aiming to cut this figure to under 100,000. The figure for EU-only net migration was 184,000, equaling its record high, and 188,000 for non-EU. In an open letter to Mr. Cameron, published in the Sunday Times, Mr. Gove and Mr. Johnson said the migration pledge had become unachievable. They said, voters were promised repeatedly at elections that net migration could be cut to tens of thousands. This promise is plainly not achievable as long as the UK is a member of the EU, and the failure to keep it is corrosive of public trust in politics. They also said they were particularly concerned about the impact of free movement in the future on public services. Class sizes will raise and waiting lists will lengthen if we don't tackle free movement, they wrote. Meanwhile, Conservative backbencher and Leave campaigner Andrew Bridgen told 5 Live's Pioneers Politics that as many as 50 Tory MPs were ready to back a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister. If there's a small Remain vote, I think there probably would be 50 colleagues who'd be very dissatisfied with the Prime Minister's performance, he said. Leave campaigner and former Conservative Defence Secretary Liam Fox told the BBC's Andrew Marr he did not know if that was true, but the EU referendum should not be turned into an internal Tory party debate. He said he was sure Mr. Cameron wanted restrictions on free movement, and it was impossible when planning public services to deal with those sort of numbers of net migrants. In response to the letter, Number 10 said, "This is a transparent attempt to distract from the fact that the overwhelming majority of economists and businesses believe leaving the single market would be disastrous for jobs, prices, and opportunities for people." 9 in 10 of the UK's top economists agree that leaving the EU would damage the country's economy, according to a survey published in The Observer. According to an Ipsos Mori poll of more than 600 economists, 88% of those who replied said leaving the EU single market would damage Britain's growth prospects over the next 5 years. Britain Stronger in Europe campaign director Will Straw said, "This is the final nail in the coffin of the Leave campaign's economic credibility. It is becoming clear that leaving is a risk we simply cannot afford to take. A vote to leave the EU would cause an immediate shock to our economy," former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair told the BBC. "It would create years of uncertainty because we will then have to renegotiate all the complicated trading arrangements we have with the rest of Europe," he told Andrew Marr. "That isn't some hypothetical risk, it is something you will see directly in people's jobs, in people's living standards, in businesses' ability to work with confidence," he said. "It's an enormous political problem. And," he said, "leaving the EU would not solve migration problems. If you actually break down the figures on EU migration, many of these people come in on short-term contracts, and then will go back out again. Many of these people work in vital public services. And we also get the benefit. The reason we can travel around Europe, without restrictions, is because of the freedom of movement of people." Elsewhere, former Conservative Prime Minister Sir John Major criticised the Vote Leave campaign in the Mail on Sunday for the inaccuracies and falsehoods they are peddling to the British people. He said the Leave campaign's focus on raising fears rather than setting out facts on immigration was distasteful.